Let's look at the first example problem. A ball starting off a roof of a cliff with initial velocity of 4 meters per second upwards and a horizontal velocity of 6 meters per second, neglecting air resistance. Vertically, the ball experiences acceleration due to gravity. Horizontally, the ball is moving at a constant velocity. What is the direction and speed of the ball after 4 seconds? So in this problem, there are a couple things about it. Number one, I have two accelerations, one vertically and one horizontal. And our rule is every time I have an acceleration, that gives me a list of givens. So that tells me I'm going to have two lists of givens in this problem. And I'm looking for the speed of the ball. So that means I'm going to look at the velocity vertically and the velocity horizontally. Once I find those two velocities, I'll create a triangle. I'm going to use trig in geometry to figure out the answer. So now let's look a little bit more at the solution for this problem. So here are my givens. The first thing I'll do is list my table of givens. I have two lists this time. So I've got a vertical list over here, and I've got a horizontal list right here. And then I've also got my variables, vox TVA, VOX TVA. Now putting my givens up here, I know that vertically, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have the 4 meters per second vertically, and that's pretty much all I've got vertically. Oh, I also know the acceleration is going to be downwards at negative 9.8 meters per second squared. Horizontally, I have that the velocity is going to be 6 meters per second. Now the time down here at the bottom, that's going to be for both columns because time's a scalar, so it'll go in both columns. So if I look at my givens now, I've got vertically at 4 meters per second, horizontally at 6. The time is 4 and 4, and the acceleration is downwards at 9.8 meters per second squared. Alright, let's continue on with the solution. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use only the givens in the vertical column to answer the next question. So what I'm after is I'm after the vertical velocity, the Vy velocity. So to find the Vy velocity, what I need to do is use the givens only in the vertical column. So using these three givens, I need a formula with Vy in it. This tells me I'm going to use V equals V naught plus AT. So I'm using V equals V naught plus AT, plugging in my values, making sure that the signs are followed. So I've got a positive velocity and a negative acceleration because initial velocity goes up, acceleration goes down. And that gives me a negative 32.2, and the negative means it's going down. Now to find the horizontal velocity, what I'll do is I'll use the horizontal givens right there. But since the acceleration is equal to 0, the horizontal velocity stays the same. So it's 6 in the very beginning, and it'll be 6 at the very end. So it's down here at the bottom. It's still 6 meters per second, and that's always going to be true for us. So the horizontal velocity will stay the same. Alright, so let's continue on with the solution. Now that I have the Vy and the Vx, I know that the Vy is going downwards. So there it is, and it's got a negative sign. That means it's going down. At this point, I'll just draw an arrow going down, and I'll ignore the negative sign. Vx is going the same direction it was initially, so I had it going initially to the right. I'll have this one also going to the right. And now I've got my triangle down here at the bottom. So Vy is equal to 35.2 meters per second with an arrow going down. Vx is 6 meters per second with an arrow going down. What I need to find now is the hypotenuse, which is the red arrow, and the angle, theta. At this point, I'm going to use trig in geometry. So let me slide this up a little bit. There we go. So I'll use trig to find the angle. So theta is equal to or tangent theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. So that's going to be 35.2 divided by 6. And when I put in the math, I get 80.3 degrees. Make sure your calculator is in degree mode. And then to find the magnitude, I'll use Pythagorean's theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That means it's going to be 35.2 squared plus 6 meters per second squared, and the velocity comes out to be 35.7 meters per second. So if you were riding this object downwards, your speedometer would read 35.7 meters per second, and the angle is 80.3 degrees.